Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Terms in News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and today we will be discussing some important concepts and terms which have been in news in past few days. So let us begin with the first term that has been in news, that is Discombobulator. When we are talking about this particular term, it might sound like a funny term, but this is the term that Donald Trump has used for the sonic weapon that might have been used for the capture of Venezuelan president, and that is why this has been in news. So when we are trying to understand Discombobulator, there has been no specific definition that has come out, but it is being described as the secret weapon at the hand of US. When we are trying to understand it, it may be or may not be a single specific weapon that actually comprises of more than one capability. As of now, the agencies and the research is assuming that this particular weapon might be a sonic weapon, and it claims to actually disrupt all the enemy weapons, disable the radars and communication, and this is the one which helps US forces to ensure that there is no resistance at all. And that is why it is being said that the Venezuelan president was captured using Discombobulator. Now in this context, when we are talking about this particular weapon, it is very important to understand that what exactly and what kind of technology it involves. So it is speculated that it might be some sort of advanced electric or microwave warfare, or some sonic or directed energy systems and combination of cyber and jamming technologies, which results in a reported disorientation and physical symptoms, something that can be compared with Havana syndrome that is seen. And this disorientation is responsible for non-resistance that is seen by the armed forces. However, this has not officially been confirmed, but this term as a sonic weapon has been doing rounds. Now on this note, we will be moving to the next term that we are covering today, that is Polar Vortex. So when we are talking about Polar Vortex as a concept, it has been in news because we get to understand that the chilly and extreme winter that we are seeing, especially across North America, is because of this Arctic invisible gatekeeper, which makes sure the extreme winter in Arctic, it is responsible because of Polar Vortex. Now let us understand what exactly is Polar Vortex. So when we are talking about Polar Vortex, you have to imagine it as a very huge cyclonic round circulation, and this circulation is of cold air, and this extreme circulation is present only at polar regions. Now let us try to understand this with the exam, and then we will move towards the definition. So let's just say during the spring and summer time, what happens is that the cold air moves southwards and warm air moves north, because of which this circulation is not uniform, it becomes weak, and the jet stream which facilitates this circulation is also weak, because there is constantly frontal movement. Air masses, cold air masses coming towards south and warm air mass is moving towards north, which weakens the jet stream system. However, when we are talking about winter, this is removed, this constant movement is removed, the cold air becomes further denser and the movement is contained in the northern region itself, which is also facilitated by strong jet stream. Now because of this uniform and strong jet stream, the cold air is not able to move southwards, and we get to see a gradual cyclonic circulation of this very cold air only at pole. Now, as I said, it does happen during spring and summer also, but this is weakened. So it is a permanent atmospheric feature, but the strength and also position, they vary because of the season itself. On this note, we need to understand the structure of it. It is located on the upper troposphere and stratosphere. This is the place where you get to see jet streams, and it is confined by strong westerly winds. Whenever it is stable, the cold air remains locked near the pole, and whenever it is weakened or disrupted, cold Arctic air spills southward, causing extreme winter even in the mid latitudes. I am talking about 60° north, 60° south. And because of climate change, we get to see that Arctic warming has basically reduced the temperature contrast, and that has weakened the jet stream, which has resulted in weaker polar vortex, and that is why we are getting to see extreme winters till mid latitude, especially in the northern hemisphere this year. Now on this note, we will be moving to the next term that we are covering today, that is Doomsday Clock. Now Doomsday Clock has been in news because this particular clock is moving closer to midnight, and midnight shows the end of the world, that is doomsday. That is why it is also called Doomsday Clock. Now let us try to understand that what exactly is Doomsday Clock. Basically, Doomsday Clock is nothing real, but it is a symbolic representation of how close the humanity is to destroying itself. Basically assuming that humanity is creating so many chaos, so many risks, so many catastrophe, that there is time that all of this will end. So there will be a doomsday, and based on that, it is calculated. So this Doomsday Clock is maintained by Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, and this has been maintained since 1947. So now let us have a look. So if we are talking about over the years, in 1991 it was 17 minutes to midnight, and as we enter 2000s, you will see that it has been rapidly moving towards 12. And as of now in 2026, it has been highlighted that it is 85 seconds to midnight, that we are closer to doomsday than we think. Now when we are talking about Doomsday Clock, it is for the understanding that what actually midnight means. In a generalistic term, I am labeling it at doomsday, but it means that some nuclear annihilation might take place. So if you see the world, the US is warning on attacking Iran with nukes, what is happening in West Asia, Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, India, China, all of this indicates that the possibility of nuclear annihilation is much. Ecological collapse, the movement, the climate change, floods, droughts, and uncontrolled technological disasters. So midnight could mean any sort of doom or disaster, which could be any of this. It is not a definitive, but it is not a predictive tool, but you should understand that this is a communication way, or it is a mechanism to tell that how risky things are getting. So it is basically a risk communication mechanism, and the time adjustment towards the doomsday are made based on how frequently we are increasing nuclear arsenals, how the nuclear doctrines are performing. As of now, global doctrines are not functioning at all. What are the climate tipping points, how artificial intelligence is doing, how dangerous it is getting. And as of now, Doomsday Clock serves as a clear reminder to understand how well global governance is working or how badly global governance is failing, and also about arms control regimes. On this note, we will be moving to the next term that we are covering today, that are forever chemicals. So forever chemicals have been in news because European Union has been quoting and reporting that if forever chemicals are banned, they could easily save more than 110 billion euros by next 25 years. So to understand this, we need to understand that what exactly are forever chemicals. Starting with the definition. So whenever we are talking about forever chemicals, as the name suggests itself, that they have a very, very long life. The reason they are named so, because they are not just resistant to heat, extreme heat, they are chemically very stable, and they are non-biodegradable. Now what exactly are they? They are nothing but synthetic chemicals which have a very strong carbon and fluorine bond, and they are commonly known as PFAs, that is per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. They are usually used and found around you frequently, be it in form of non-stick cookware, waterproof textiles, firefighting foams, and also in food packaging. So when we are talking about the name forever chemicals, it is given because of the characteristics, because they facilitate their presence across the earth for a very long time, and because of that they have huge environmental impact, such as they persist in soil and water for the longest time. They are associated with health concerns such as bioaccumulation in blood, increased chances of cancer, and also they lead to hormonal as well as immune disruption. On this note, we will be moving to the next term that we are covering today, that is Nipah. Nipah virus has been in news, especially in India, but as of now, WHO has declared that there is low risk of Nipah virus, especially in terms of its spread beyond India. So as of now, WHO has not recommended any sort of travel or trade restrictions. When we are talking about Nipah virus, first we have to understand its origin. It is a highly pathogenic but zoonotic virus, and it was identified back in 1998 in Malaysia. It is usually seen in fruit bats, and transmission takes from bats to humans via fruits or sap that is being consumed, or via animals to human, and there is limited transmission from humans to humans. The reason Nipah virus is so dangerous because the mortality rate when we are talking about viral diseases, it is highest in Nipah virus, and the symptoms show up as a normal viral thing, just like acute fever, encephalitis and respiratory diseases. These things which are also seen in COVID. As I said, it becomes dangerous because it has the highest mortality when we are talking about viral diseases, and that is why it is a hazard to public health, because there is no health vaccine present. There is no health vaccine present as of now for Nipah virus. Now on this note, we will be moving to the next term we are doing today, that is demographic transition. Demographic transition as a term has been frequently used when we are talking about the recent times about India and its growth trajectory, but it has been presently in news because it is demographic transition which is opening a window of opportunity so that India can move into a better growth trajectory. So to understand this news, we would need to understand the term first. So moving towards demographic transition. So when we are talking about demographic transition, it is basically a theory which clearly explains that how growth patterns, especially in terms of population, they change with the development of a country, be it in social factors or economic factors. Now, when we are talking about this theory, it basically links birth rates, death rates, which show the population growth patterns and how it is related to economic transformation. Now let us see that in terms of stages. So if we are talking about stage 1, where the death rate is extremely high and the birth rate is also extremely high. So if we see in the stage 1, you will be able to clearly identify that this particular line is showing birth rate and this is showing death rate. Now because the birth rate is also high and the death rate is also high, because when we are talking about the society, it is not developed, the economic development is not there, so there are famines, there are diseases, there are poor medical knowledge, and many children die. So that is why birth rate are higher and so are the death rates. That is why population is either slow or the increase is very limited. But when the country gradually moves to the second stage, we get to see that the population is expanding. How it is expanding? The birth rate remains high, but the death rate starts to fall and it falls rapidly. This is the time we get to see a rapid increase in population. How do we see this? Because birth rate is high, because many children are needed for farming, because the economy is majorly based on primary sector, there is religious or also social encouragement, there is no family planning, no contraceptives available, and the death rate is declining because the improvement is in medical care. Water supply and sanitation gets better, so that means fewer children are dying. Now comes the third stage where birth rate starts to decline. Death rate is also decreasing but slowly. Now why birth rate is declining? Birth rate is declining because there is improved medical care, child care is costly, there is family planning, contraceptives are present, and death rate is decreasing. Why? Because we have better medical care. So you will see that in this particular section, again the population is increasing. So we have early expanding in stage 2 and late expanding in stage 3. Stage 4 comes a stationary phase where the population increase is stable or there is very limited increase, because birth rate is also low, death rate is also low. And this is because there is family planning, there is good health, improving status, later marriages and all. And then comes the 5th stage where there is decrease in population because birth rate has also declined and it has dipped below the death rate. This is where we see the population, birth rate is very low, population is decreasing, death rate is very low. Now based on stages, I'll put the countries. As of now, in the first categories, there are very limited countries, actually none. As of now, in stage 1, you will not find many countries at all. But if we are talking about stage 2, you can place countries like Kenya, you can place countries like Egypt. And when you are talking about stage 3, you can place India and Brazil in this particular category where the birth rate is falling but death rate is falling way too slowly. And when we are talking about stage 4 where birth rate is low, death rate is low, this is seen in developed economy. Now this particular stages give us the advantage of population and young workforce. And that is what was being talked on the news, that India has the window of opportunity, because after that, once we move towards developed economy, the birth rate might also slow and we might not have the advantage of young workforce. Now on this note, we will be moving to the next term that we are doing today, that is priority sector lending. Priority sector lending has been in news because RBI has asked especially HDFC and ICICI Bank, which are domestic systematically important banks. Can you tell me in the comment section what are DSIBs and are there any banks in list apart from HDFC and ICICI? So they are the ones to make extra provision because RBI has asked them for priority sector lending. So when we talk about PSL, it basically means that there are certain sectors which will be kept in the list foremost when it comes to lending, and they need to be given the credit at any given cost. That means the credit policy will be directed towards these sectors. Now priority sector lending is basically a monetary policy tool that RBI uses. It is a qualitative monetary policy use. Why does RBI use it? RBI uses it to control the credit's movement in certain sectors and ensure there is no market failure. If there is any market failure, it needs to be corrected by priority sector lending. How this is done? It is done by telling the banks that you have to lend a fixed portion of your credit. Let's just say a bank has 100 rupees to lend, then a certain portion RBI has fixed 75%. This is to be lent to certain important sectors socially and economically. So when we are talking about small finance banks, they have to give 75% to PSL. PSL sector, priority sector lending sectors are agriculture, MSME, education, housing and renewable energy, and government can add also to this list further. The reason PSL is important, it facilitates inclusive growth, it ensures there is no regional and sectoral imbalance, and if there is, it works towards its reduction. But the problem with PSL is the fact when we are focusing on weak sectors, they lead to the problem of bad loans. That means they contribute to the problems of rising NPAs. They hamper the credit absorption capacity and they also hamper the credit absorption capacity. Now that was all from my side. I'll be coming up with more terms and news in the upcoming session. Thank you so much.